this recording today. It's you, Jessica, and one of the most famous honeymoon employees, Paige.
That's a good way to. I mean, we struggled actually to label her in this, right?
Yeah. So, but one thing, what I thought of halfway through was I thought to myself, I bet this is her first podcast. I bet she's never recorded a podcast before. Yeah. And how well, and I think it speaks a lot to you guys as a three people off of your team, your chemistry. But I thought, man, she is killing it. She's doing great, and your guys' flow was great. And it was you trace back. I was not expecting like the history of her working here and stuff, but I already loved Paige. But after that podcast, I feel like my respect for her as a person and what she's been through and like how she's gotten this far and the role she plays within Honeymoon really felt after I listened to that podcast like she deserves to be VP. I didn't even know she was VP.
Yeah.
That's great. And then also I get why you guys are all so close. Like I get it now. I think I needed that as a fan of Honeymoon and as a person working on the podcast. And a person who's been around Paige a bunch to like that all sort of tied it together.
Yeah. You've had a unique role. Like you're not an employee of Honeymoon, but you've been a collaborator with us now for so long that you see how much she is involved in so much of what we do. And we were joking about her boundaries. You know, does she have appropriate boundaries or not? Because it's like she is just game to do whatever we want to try. Even if she's not sure if it's going to work, there's enough trust kind of built up now to where she's going to go for it with us. And because she knows that we're going to debrief and we're going to learn about it together. And she knows we're still learning. And she obviously is continuing to learn as she develops as a professional as well. And who knows? We don't get the sense from her that this is a stepping stone into something else. Like she's all in. She's here. She is.
I can feel it. Yeah.
She is giving 100% of what she can right now, without an expectation of what the future might hold within or outside of Honeymoon. And if there's somebody kind of in a similar spot as her, I just want to affirm that approach. Like it's something that Jessica and I as business owners really appreciate and continue to open up more and more to her to let her see every side of our business as she moves forward, because the trust keeps getting deeper and deeper. And
I thought along those lines, the fact that like even when you guys hired her full-time from being part-time to full-time, you discussed, I think it was over Zoom, maybe even. I think was when you guys had that like initial or like that eventual conversation of like, or FaceTime or whatever. But it was like, what's the role going to be? But you guys opened up and created basically a role for her to like to utilize the skills that she already had. And I thought like as someone who's an entrepreneur myself, like looking at you guys doing that as business owners, I thought, well, that's like not only good for her, it's really good for you guys. That's like the next step of like, well, what does it look like to have a management team, not just employees working the shop, but like, what is this other side of things? And you open that up for her. And I think too, like it gives her the opportunity to like, because I feel like everybody has like she talked about her dream was to be a fashion designer. And then she gets in and she's like, actually, I don't want to be like, she doesn't want to be the creative person, but she likes the numbers. She likes all this stuff. So to be able to try that out in a different way, doing coffee, which she also has a love for. It just felt like, I'm like, well, that's like the best of both worlds.
She was able to develop a work ethic that allowed her to gain the trust of people that, in the case of Jessica and I, wanted to kind of unleash her and continue to find where the limits of her potential might be. And she keeps, reaching and exceeding everything that we expose her to. But at the same time, it's like, Paige, where do you want to go? What do you want to do next? How do we position this together to be a win-win for you? Because she does genuinely care about the company. And then obviously she cares about, what she's going to be doing for her career and how she develops as a person. and she believes that we will take care of her as well. And it's just this really nice, mutually beneficial relationship to where the more each of us give to each other, it seems like the more we then have to give as it extends more and more. Like even the fact of the podcast was something that happened so last minute. Like you said, she'd never been on a podcast before. I said, you know what? I think, because we had another married couple that we were looking at getting, and then the schedule, finally it was like the 11th hour. Let's just cut the cord on that one. All right, Paige, you're not married. You don't fit the criteria for our interviews this season, but you're the perfect person to sort of interview to get another sort of inside look on, sort of how we make decisions and how we run our business. And she was like, okay, never done it before, but I trust you and let's go. And she was all in. She was,
and it was great. Like because sometimes I feel that, first time podcast guests can be a little stumbly, or
it should be your worst one, right? You should learn from it, and it should be getting better from there. Mm-hmm. And hers might be as well. So if that's her worst, podcast conversation,
she might have a bright future.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I thought I did think about this too. So honeymoon is not going to be, obviously, I think everybody realizes, even young people starting to work here, it's not going to be necessarily something they do forever, or even all 4 years of high school or through college. It could just be a summer thing. But I think if anything, Paige's story shines a light on but if you wanted to, it doesn't matter what the business is or what the career is. Like if you genuinely work hard and you show up and you have a good intention and you really want to get better and make things better around you, you literally can create opportunities. Like she created an opportunity in partnership with you guys. And I know that you guys joke around that she's your adopted daughter or something.
Yeah. We really didn't get into as much of the personal stuff as we could have, but yeah.
But I mean, at the end, she called you guys her mom and dad, or work mom and dad. I thought, I want an adopted daughter. I have kids, but I want an adopted daughter like her one day. She's just I don't know. I just, when I think about it, I'm like, she's a role model. She's not even 30. What is she? 25?
No, she's 26.
She's 26. Yeah. And I just feel like already, she's a great role model for anybody.
Yeah. No, we think so, and we treat her as such. And it's not even that we expect the team to look at her that way. They already do. They
it's
look
earned,
up to her.
right?
Exactly.
It's not,
exactly. She's she started with us at quote unquote at the bottom, at a frontline position, and has done everything. And so when she speaks to the team, she has that authority, and they have the understanding that she has been in their shoes and wouldn't be asking them to do something that she hasn't already done, and done really well.
So she has authority, but also empathy as
oh yeah.
I've been here too.
Yeah.
I think it speaks. Yeah, I think it speaks in just her story and her the way that she expresses herself, the way that you guys respect her. So we're excited for everybody to hear this episode.
Yeah. We'll tell some more about the product that we've been working on, at some point in the future. But we did think that it ended up feeling really appropriate, because you and I will have conversations, offline to say, hey, what are we going to do for this next episode? And I sort of use you as sort of like a spirit check, like, hey, does this fit the spirit of the show? And it was immediately for you. You knew, this is going to fit.
This is the episode.
Yeah. So we'll get back to the regular format next time. And if we don't, we always know we have Paige to fall back on.
That's exactly right. Last minute, within the hour. So without further ado, this is the Honeymoon Podcast with Zach and Jessica, interviewing VP Paige Venturi.
Yeah, PV. Okay. VP PV.
There we go.
I'm getting blank stares over here. The great stuff for podcast ladies.
Poetic.
All right, so that voice that was not Jessica's was the voice of our very own Paige Venturi. And I didn't say your title, because I thought it would actually be fun to sort of go through all the different titles
that she's had.
and hats that you have worn.
Are we going all the way back to our volleyball days?
I think we should.
Okay,
It's only
okay.
right.
So yeah, let's start from the beginning.
Especially since you watched us play volleyball tonight.
We connected the loop.
Yes.
We've closed it.
We have.
I quit. I quit.
This is it.
Not allowed.
So so tonight Paige got to watch Jessica and I play volleyball for a recreational league here in the community that for some reason allows 44-year-olds to play without signing a waiver.
And they were the best ones on the team.
Oh, be careful! You know our team definitely listens to the podcast.
Mike.
But you guys definitely have a history that begins with volleyball. So who wants to go first? Tell the story. How you guys met each other and when?
Okay, so what year would that have been? Do you know?
2010, I
Okay.
think.
So I volunteered at Paige's school.
They
as
didn't pay you?
No, no. I was paid before this gig, but I decided because my kids were going to the school that I would be nice and volunteer and coach the team. So Paige made the team.
Thankful. I don't think we cut.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we did.
I don't think we did.
This
That's
was
a nice spin, though.
A small private school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Different animal for me. So Paige has memories of me being a little hardcore.
Terrifying is the word that we used. We loved Coach. We only called you Coach, actually. Like, I don't think I knew your first name until I was in high school, at least. We were like, Coach or Coach Parsons is the proper term.
Oh wow, because you hadn't even met me yet.
Or not,
Oh,
Coach
yeah,
Farmer.
yeah.
No, sorry, it was Coach
Different name,
Farmer,
yeah.
yeah.
That's how much
Yeah.
you didn't know
That's
her
right.
name.
No, genuinely. We were like, she is Coach, period.
No, wait. So how old would you have been at this time?
11?
Wow,
12?
look at
Yeah.
that.
It was
Yeah.
varsity volleyball, 7th grade and 8th grade.
And then I didn't see you for several years, but we were
Yeah.
like friendly. If I did see you, like I wanted to catch
Yeah.
up.
And make
I
sure
would
she
say
was
hi,
running
Coach.
sprints.
Suicides.
And
yeah.
then you
Oh,
started
yeah.
working at Starbucks. And so we were Facebook friends. So I'm seeing that you're working as a barista. And I think it was during COVID.
Yeah.
I
COVID.
reached out to you because it was just a crap storm of employees being quarantined. I could never have enough people to even keep the stores open. I was trying to work like doubles every day. I was
So
like,
seriously,
"Paige,
she,
please.
she was just a body? You were just like, I need a body. I'm going to
No,
throw a
a
body
trained
into
body.
She was like, she was trained as a barista, and I just always thought she would be good. So when I had the opportunity, I asked.
Okay.
I think there had been a summer before you had messaged me and was like, hey, if you're in town this summer, we'd love to have you. I know you worked at Starbucks, and I was interning in New York. And so I was like, no, but next opportunity,
Oh, I would love to leave New York and come back to Evansville. Work
Yeah.
at a coffee shop for my old
Now you're
volleyball
stuck
coach.
here.
And I had been having like a crisis. I graduated college in May of 2020, so I didn't really graduate. I sat in my room and cried a lot. And I was like, man, I quit Starbucks. I had a full-time job, and I was like, this is the first time in 8 years I'm not going to be a barista. And then Jess messaged me in August, right when I moved back to Evansville, and was like, hey, do you want to be a barista? I was like,
It's
yes.
crazy how much being a barista just gets in your blood. Mm-hmm. You kind of felt unfulfilled
It's
without it, didn't
meant
you?
to be. Yeah, I did. I was like, I need to talk to people.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to then. So I'm assuming you didn't have a job at 11.
Correct.
Okay. So what was your first job?
Starbucks, actually.
And how old are you?
16.
So 16, you say, I want money, or were you drawn to the coffee? Like, get us back in the mind of 16-year-old Paige.
I was drawn to the coffee. My mom was a regular at Green River Road Starbucks, and so
Yes,
I was
Tracy.
there. Yeah, some of them still work there, the same baristas, and they know
You're
her.
kidding.
No, actually. Some of the
Wow.
ones, they hit 10 years a
That's
while
amazing
back.
for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good for them.
Yeah.
And so I was exposed to barista culture really early on in age, and I was like friends with the manager, and she said, the day you turn 16, you have a job. And I applied the day I
Happy
turned
birthday.
16. Yeah. I was so excited. And so, yeah, then I was able to keep that job through college.
Okay, so I have a side question based on that.
Okay.
Have you ever not gotten a job that you applied for?
I haven't gotten an internship. Well, actually, yeah. I mean, like when you cold apply to jobs, if I knew the person
I
could
was
shake their
like,
hand, yes.
You're such
but
an achiever that I just wondered if you'd ever been turned
yeah.
down.
I set my mind
Yeah.
to it. I shall achieve it.
I got my heart broken by Calvin Klein. I was one of 2 people interviewing for an internship position.
What a
and
great
I didn't
line.
get it.
Let's just. That's our intro.
I
right
got
there.
my heart broken by Calvin Klein. It was January in Manhattan.
Well, so this is great. So I also have a couple side questions. Do you remember your first taste of coffee?
No, it was
Okay.
a Frappuccino. I know that much.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you remember a little bit about it.
Which is contradictory considering I'm
coffee?
diabetic.
my first taste, right before I slipped into a coma.
It did have coffee in it. I think my mom's boyfriend bought it for me, and I was like, I can't drink this. And then I took a sip of it, and I was like, I'll
amazing.
drink
I'll
it.
take a
Yeah,
shot.
I'll take a shot of insulin for sure. I do remember vividly when I was in high school, I thought it was really cool to drink a pour over, and I would get a dark roast pour over at like 4 p.m.
At
and
Starbucks?
And I did not realize what a nuisance that was. And looking back
Yes,
on it,
when I worked at Starbucks, if someone were to pour over, everyone would lose their mind.
yeah, it's like you're
They
the
were
worst
so
person in the
angry.
world. Yes, yes. And they'd
Do
be
you
like,
realize how much more we have to do?
it's gonna
4
take
minutes.
15 minutes. Oh no, they'd be like, it's gonna take at least 10. And I'd be like, that's okay. I'm sitting here doing homework for 4 hours. I go to SIG. I don't have a life. Sure.
Okay, so here's the other question then. So you mentioned going to signature school, which is, I think, at the time of this recording, still like maybe the top ranked high school like in the country. Like it's
up there.
Yeah, really prestigious school. It is sort of designed for and filled with high achievers. So when did sort of your career path start to become something that you felt had more clarity? I mean, we know it gets to New York at some point, but like when did you say, I've got a path, here's what I want to do?
Never.
We're still waiting for that day.
I was gonna say, and when did you blow that path
Yeah,
up to come
yeah.
work for us?
No. I guess I always thought I'd work in fashion in some capacity, so I was like, at least that is clear, and I thought I'd be.
When you say always, like even like as a young girl,
Yeah.
like you
Oh,
were
yeah.
like, okay, so fashion,
Oh.
like if there's a career in here, I want to.
I will do it. I thought I was
Yeah.
going to be a fashion designer, and I would like quote unquote sketch all the time, and I'm really bad at drawing, so I was like, that wasn't happening. And now there's technology you can do that with, but regardless, it was too much the creative. Not as much analytical for my brain, and that scratches an itch.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to tell you. I can't believe I blew this. You've died. I blew it. I'm so sorry. You've died. Now tell me, how did you die?
Okay. So I died getting hit by a Twinkie delivery truck.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
What were you doing in front of the Twinkie delivery truck?
Just driving down the road, and they just knew they could like smell the diabetes from my car.
Ironically, still
Yeah.
killed by a sugary
Yeah,
treat.
yeah. It was right in front of Starbucks because I always said I'd die at Starbucks. And
Oh,
so, yeah.
wow. Well done.
Thank you.
So Paige and I have fallen in love with Brett Goldstein and his podcast, Films to Be Buried With, and that is the question he asks of all his guests. How did you die? And they sort of go into different stories from their lives about how film touched them and maybe inspired them in some way, or there was something meaningful. So now I kind of wonder with this whole fashion thing, was there a film, or knowing how much you love movies, TV shows, like, was there some sort of Hollywood experience that made you think, yes, I want that kind of life?
Yes, there's two. The Devil
This
Wears
is what I'm
Prada.
thinking of. Okay, that was one.
Yeah, The Devil Wears Prada, I think, is an obvious choice. And then there was also Confessions of a Shopaholic with Isla Fisher, often confused with Amy Adams. Isla Fisher is the chipper Amy Adams.
I missed
Chipper-er.
that one altogether.
It's
Was it
so
on
fun.
What network?
I don't know. I owned it on DVD.
What do you mean? What network?
Oh, yeah.
It's a film.
It was a
Oh.
movie. Oh, I thought
yeah.
it was a show. Okay.
How
Yeah.
dare you?
Show would be Totally Spies, in which it was 3 teenage girls who were spies for this organization called WHOOP that stood for something.
What was that one with Heidi Klum? Was it
Project Runway?
I liked that
Yeah,
one. I
yep.
was into it.
Did watch every season for sure of that. Absolutely. There were
Okay,
a lot, but
so fashion, and then so it's it's high paced, caffeine, coffee, barista culture. You're getting sort of sucked into all this. You get accepted into this prestigious school, and then it's time to choose a college, time to choose a major. Like, walk us through your sort of next steps as you're like, I'm going to be a grown up someday.
So, as far as college went, I really wanted to go to NYU, but I knew I could not afford that. So I applied to a couple fashion schools in New York, got in, could not afford that. So I was like, IU! They actually have a really great apparel merchandising program, which was something that only came on my radar for looking at like programs within IU. Because I was like, fashion design, I don't think I can draw and be creative 24/7. And so apparel merchandising came on my radar, and it's essentially like you're the person who buys and produces items that go into stores. And so there's a mathematical component to it. That's what I ended up majoring
Get your
in.
spreadsheets in.
And yep, I was required to learn Excel, and I love it, and it's my passion now. So yeah, IU came on my radar for financial reasons. They gave me a lot of scholarship money. It was close enough to home, so I was like, that'll work. I don't want to be close to home, but I am.
In-state
So
tuition.
yep, exactly that. So then I ended up going to IU and kind of founding and running a fashion magazine, which there had never been one on IU's campus before. And I kind of struggled, I feel like, to meet my true crew when I was in college. I was on an Indian dance team for 2 years, and they were awesome people.
They were so nice.
Gorgeous outfits, great people. Not my core friend group. It would turn out at the end of my time there, which was fine. And it was mainly like they were finance majors and were like living a very different path than I saw myself going down. So I was part of the founding crew of this magazine and ended up being the editor-in-chief for 2.5 years. And met my
competition for your newsletter.
game on.
Do you want to take over my newsletter?
Pass.
We'll add a bunch more photos in there, including honeymoon fashion.
Perfect.
Okay, so you're in college. You're it's kind of entrepreneurial. It seems like there's something you saw a need. You were part of starting it, part of founding it. You ascend to a leadership position. Graduation's coming. I don't know. Ascend seems appropriate. She's rising up the ranks. Okay, we're foreshadowing here. And then it's time to sort of graduate and, join the real world. Did you say Starbucks or barista life was still in your life at this point?
Yeah,
Or continued to be? Okay.
I worked at Starbucks through the pandemic. So through through July of 2020, I think I worked at Starbucks. It was like a month lapse that I took time off from Starbucks and started at Honeymoon. So...
But there was another job that you took out of college in your career field, and you can say as much or as little, about that.
About the name if you want.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, I don't care. We parted amicably.
Okay, then great.
Yeah, I was a buyer for Burlington Coat Factory.
Which is a huge deal for me as a Burlington customer.
Huge. It would have been bigger if it was Ross for Mama J, but I'll work on
true.
it. Yeah,
I'm
that's
a Burlington
the
guy,
competitor.
and she's a Ross girl.
But I started as an assistant buyer and got promoted up to an associate in the time that I was there. So I was doing exactly what I went to school for, which was cool. That I was like, check that box, scratch that itch, get to use Excel every day. Love that.
And did it start in person and then was interrupted by the
No.
Okay, so
No.
so you actually never got to experience some sort of fulfillment of your dream as a child.
Right, exactly. Not in a full-time sense. I got
Yeah.
to intern over the summer and go into an office, which was a cool experience. But I started, my whole interview process was remote. And so there was like a group Zoom and technical difficulties, and it was incredibly awkward.
I bet it wasn't the most interesting Zoom interview you ever had
was
for a
gonna
job.
say-
We'll get there.
Get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
Mere months later.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So you're starting this job. At what point do you start to feel... So we already talked about when Jessica had sort of invited you to be a part of, Honeymoon, sort of part-time, and it wasn't right timing when you were in New York. It became right timing later on that next summer. Am I on the timeline
Something
right
around
now?
there, yeah.
But it's not something that's going to replace your career.
Yeah.
It's not. It's
Yeah.
it's something that you can maybe add nights and weekends, and so you jump on that, and that's let's put it in a timeline here. Give us a date.
2020. August 2020 is when I
August
started
2020.
at Honeymoon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now you're
She
working.
was working weekends.
Weekends
so you're
only.
working 40, 50 hours a week, for your Burlington job.
Yeah.
And then Saturdays
Another
and
10
Sundays.
hours,
Yep.
maybe 12
Yeah.
on the weekends.
Yeah. And what do you remember from starting a Honeymoon, comparing it to your years of experience at Starbucks?
Oh, a totally different beast just with the food component and the global pandemic component. But I remember Jess was like, you'll just be on the bar on the weekends, like taking orders will be a breeze. Don't worry about learning the kitchen. And I remember showing up to my first shift and Ash was like, no, get in the kitchen. We're teaching you everything. And I was like, all right, game on. Like, we're ready. And I was like, this is kind of a break. It felt like it wasn't as fast paced. And then as things started calming down with COVID. I was like, oh, never mind. No, this is just a different monster because we're cooking food and serving it to people. And we had a pickup station at first, and then we started like doing kind of table service. Yeah, there was a drive-through, which I was like, that feels homey at least. Yeah. I can answer a drive-through.
Not nearly as busy as Starbucks.
Yeah. So it was just comforting to be behind a bar, and it was also fulfilling in a sense that I always kind of felt like an imposter saying I was a barista when I worked at Starbucks, because I was like, I've never tamped a shot in my life. I've never dialed in a grinder. Yeah. So I was like, I've never really poured latte art. Like, I don't actually feel like I can claim that. So I got to learn all of that and actually like learn the mechanics of the machine and how to dial in. And so that was really fulfilling.
That's awesome. Yeah, the whole challenge is set before you, and whether it's set before you by a person or you just sort of see it as an opportunity to sort of grow, that seems to be sort of a theme. So still, though, it's a weekend job. You're still, grinding, at your other job for a while. When did you approach her? How did things change? I'm trying to remember the timeline.
It had always come up.
I think you were starting to get really burnt out with your other job.
Yeah.
So it was like just some discussions that we had when we worked together sometimes.
Yep. And they kept talking about reopening the office, and that would mean I had to relocate to Los Angeles. And I ended up going to visit Los Angeles for work, and I hated it. So I was like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that.
No California dreaming.
No, not for this girl. Not
different animal.
Maybe San Francisco. not LA. So yeah, then that's when things got real for me. And there was like personal stuff, like my grandmother was in poor health, and I was like, wow, I haven't lived in the same city as my mom for 5 years. Like, this is actually really awesome to be able to bond with her. And so
I don't remember specifically asking you if you wanted to work full time or if it just kind of like happened.
I think it happened as a joke, and then you were like, no, but tell me if you want to.
Yeah, actually, I think that's right. I think, Jessica, you would come to me and say, gosh, wouldn't it be great? Paige is amazing. Wouldn't it be great if we could just, like, get her to quit Burlington? I'm like, babe, this has been her dream. Like, she's not going to quit Burlington. That's the dumbest.
I was hearing your side stories of,
right.
You're working, like, 12, 14-hour days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, so the part that I do remember was that
the interview.
There was some sort of time crunch to where it was like it couldn't wait until we got back from spring break.
Because I had to let them know if I was going to relocate.
Yes. Okay, that's what it was.
Okay.
And so we had things were crazy, things were busy, and it's spring break. It's like, I don't know, 5 o'clock somewhere, and it was definitely 5 o'clock where I was because I had like a glass of bourbon. And I think I had, sort of beach wear where I've got 3, 4, 5, 6 buttons, undone on my beach shirt.
Oh, yeah. You were bearing some chest.
And we're Zooming and having, a casual but, directed conversation around like, are you actually serious? Are you actually interested in this? Could we create a position for you that builds on your strengths and then also sort of positions you to continue to grow in your field should you want or need to return to it? I remember some of those details around products.
Like, let's make sure your title is something that this is not a step down for you.
Yeah. You were like, whatever you want to build for your resume, we'll build it. Like, we can focus on those things. Plus help in the shops.
Do you remember what the name was?
Director of Product.
There you go.
Yeah.
The Director of Product.
Which you have introduced some awesome new products. So hopefully you've gotten to be fulfilled in like creating some things on that end.
Yeah.
Well, it's been like Director of Product and then other duties as assigned.
Yeah.
And that sort of
really
morphed.
Struggling to find a title for you. And it was so funny because I would always tell people like she's my right hand, meaning like you can basically do whatever I do besides maybe like some of the accounting stuff. And then
Challenge extended.
Zach was like, "Oh, you mean like vice president?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, that actually is what she is."
Yeah, so that's jumping all the way to the present here.
Which is how I like to do it.
Okay, before we jump all the way to the present, I think a fun sort of element of this was as Paige joined us full-time on salary, we got an opportunity to open up our Newburgh location. And so there just became all these different elements of opening that you were like game for. You're like, hey, I'm here, I'm on salary, I've launched as much product as we need right now. Tell me what to do. How can I help? and it was literally, I mean, it was painting, it was learning how to use power tools. I mean,
Good life
what
skills.
are some of those other things that you remember from the summer of 2022?
Oh, man.
Was it 22?
Yeah.
Yeah, 22.
Spring of 2022.
So much painting.
About 2 years ago now.
So much painting.
Not as much as the West Side.
No. God bless. Ice cream. That was the first summer we reintroduced ice cream, which you guys
Yeah.
had a forte with before, but
A small one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was a totally different animal.
so I vividly remember trying to figure
Yeah.
out like scoop sizes and filming
wow.
a 10-minute
It
video
was
on
so
how to scoop
hard.
ice cream.
I
Yeah.
was like, I did not think this would be hard.
No, figuring out the optimal serving temperature of the ice creams with chocolate chips and ice creams without. And
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
it was
there
hard as a
lot
brick.
more that went into it than, like, you would think. You would think, oh, I could. I
Plug
run
in
a-
the cooler and
I run
let's
a
go.
coffee shop.
Yeah.
I can do this.
It
It's
was
just-
tough.
We're not actually making the
Right.
ice cream.
And then the expectation of taking over Ben and Penny's, and
Yeah.
I guess this jumps to when we opened, but like so many customers coming in and being like, "You have coffee? I'm here for ice cream," and we were
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay."
Yes, we do.
The bar is higher,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was a lot of painting, there was a lot of ice creaming,
Putting furniture together, we put together a lot of furniture.
a lot of furniture. What else did we do?
I
I
mean,
think there was a lot of bouncing around and learning the other shops too. Well, other
Yeah,
shop
yeah,
because
yeah.
I had worked at Burkhart primarily, so I remember like going to Weinbach for the first time and learning the different ins and outs because Weinbach was a more comparable size to what Newberg's
Yeah,
footprint
yeah.
was. So learning how they do things.
I remember it feeling like a good sort of launching of something new. Like, hey, if there was ever a chance to start out on the right foot, like what would be the things we would want to do if we were starting a shop again, kind of not quite from scratch, but sort of from scratch. And that involved hiring the team, that involved setting up the expectations for that team and sort of launching in a way that would set us all up for success. But it was also a lot of just dirty work. Like I vividly remember you and Drew basically painting the entire exterior
Yeah.
of the building like
Stucco
in a
painting.
day.
Yeah. A sweaty day.
Yeah, yeah,
It was like
super hot.
95 degrees.
I think we call this trauma bonding.
Yeah, there was
And
a
it
lot of that.
It was a lot, and I have great memories of opening Newberg, and we had a great crew and a great team, and a lot of those people are still with us, which is nice. But
I remember bringing the crew in for a group training
Mm-hmm.
session, and we wanted to prepare them for negative customer
Oh,
experiences.
yeah.
And so, like, on the spot, I'm just like feeling like this sort of like improv moment. I'm like, Paige, let's do this. All right. You be the customer, you be the barista, and I'll be the customer, and like we just, and she's there for it. She's
did
like,
you know
let's
she
go.
had like a drama background, or you just were like, no?
No, I just
Loose-
knew that
loose
Paige,
background.
yeah, that Paige was like up for anything,
Yeah.
and so it felt like what was needed at that moment, and we stepped up and created this weird conversation, which you handled, gracefully.
Got a lot of laughs from it. I think you did a country accent, if I remember correctly.
I don't know about that.
That's where the accents were born at Newberg.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of British accents. I don't remember exactly how that was born, but we all started talking in a British accent, and it was just
It was Harry Styles.
Yeah, I think it was the love of Harry
the
Styles
summer of
from
Harry
the
Styles.
shopkeepers.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, so now at this point you're in. You've seen, you've experienced a location being launched, and you feel some sort of pride, around it, and then we get this opportunity to open up another location.
Zach.
And so this is everything we did in Newberg times like 10. And we have this 4,000
like
square
it.
foot building. And you sort of became my assistant in construction,
Apprentice.
Yeah.
my apprentice. And I know you've got some phobias around spiders.
Yeah, big time.
And there were lots of spiders.
Yeah.
And you've faced a lot of those fears.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were, trees that were felled. There was a sump pump that may have had some sort of excrement
Yeah.
at the bottom of it.
Poopy.
Yeah, some
Poopy.
poopy.
Yeah. First crawl space I've ever been in.
Yeah,
was a big one.
Lot of trauma bonding. But then it was like if we also then needed you to whip up something on Photoshop, you were like, I got it. Get your computer out, and it's like whatever we threw at you, you were able to respond to.
I vividly remember being in the crawl space, working on the sub pump, and there was a marriage proposal happening at Newburgh.
So
That's right.
And one of our shopkeepers from Burkhart was a photographer, and she was taking photos. It was like her best friend's marriage proposal. So she was going to text me and be like, okay, 10-minute warning. And she told me it was going to happen at 6, and it's like 5:45, and we are in the crawl space. And she texts me, and she's like, they're going inside. And I was like, girl.
And we were putting the digital on our menu board. We were putting the proposal there.
Yes.
Which
And
is something you could control from your phone as long as you
From
have
my
internet
computer.
access
Yeah.
from
we did not-
anywhere.
but
we
we
have
did not
no
have
internet.
internet.
It's a construction site. We have the old Evansville Coffee Company roastery a block-ish away in a strip
We were
mall.
sprinting.
I sprint, covered in dirt, touching my computer, covered in poop. I get there, I'm like huffing and puffing. I'm about to start hyperventilating, thinking I'm going to ruin
Ruin
a
their
marriage proposal. Yeah.
Which ruins both of their lives
Yep,
forever.
Forever. They're married, they get divorced.
Yeah.
And then they ended up taking another 25 minutes to actually get inside the building. And the
But
proposal went
it
off without a
went-
hitch.
It went swimmingly.
Yeah. And that's sort of been our experience is we've had some walls that we've hit, and we just kind of keep going, and we learn from them, and we debrief, and it became clear that director of product was not quite the appropriate title for you based on all the other hats that you had worn. And we kind of came back to you and said, hey, you're great, you're amazing, you have, been able to meet every challenge we've thrown at you, and we want to sort of recognize that. And right hand of Jessica, didn't quite fit on a business card, as well as vice president. So now, however many minutes into our podcast, we can officially introduce vice president
We have gone through the whole story.
Paige Venturi. Yeah. Well, we haven't actually, because the element that's maybe most germane to this is she also manages the integration of our podcast on our website, in our digital menus, and so you are also sort of I don't even know what title we would put in there around the podcast as well.
I love when I'm at the shop and people are like, oh, that's you. And I'm like, yes, we have a podcast.
People get
What
so
can
excited.
I get for you?
Just order, please.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
man.
and then you and I have been working on a project pretty closely for the last 4 or 5 months. We're launching a new subscription program, and it's a wedding gift for newlyweds. And so as we sort of move to sort of winding down, just talk a little bit about how the integration of what you like as a teenager, which is coffee shop baristas,
Being
and
creative.
being creative, and then learning about products and how they fit into businesses, and understanding how things cost, and being able to procure things for this program. Like, what comes to mind as you look back on where you're at at this point, and what being a vice president of Honeymoon Coffee Company looks like?
It's so fun because the first thing that comes to mind was like my experience with Burlington, which is obviously like a gigantic corporation, and they have thousands of stores. And I remember
I thought you were going to say thousands of vice presidents, but that might be true.
I think they have one, but don't quote me. Yeah. They have thousands of stores, and it's like you're not talking, we're buying 50 t-shirts. You're like, oh, we're buying 50,000 of a small and 55,000 of a large. And I remember the first time I got like my checkbook, essentially, that I got to run my own business, and it was like, okay, you have $3 million to spend for this month, go. And I was like, that makes me want to throw up. $3 million in a month on men's body wash. That's a bit absurd. And then I got used to that and settled into that, and it kind of loses its meaning. And then I came to Honeymoon, and I was like, I don't even know how to like scale down in my brain now. I'm like, all these vendors I've worked with, I thought I had all these connections I could bring, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I forgot we have to buy 3,000 units of something. And then I kind of settled into that with the vendors that Honeymoon had, and I felt like we were able to scale that appropriately. And even now, like with Evansville Coffee Company and the Newlywed Program, it's like we have 4 locations and a sister company. Like we're still scaling up. So it's kind of been the whole totem pole of like the top to the bottom, and now we're in the middle. And so it's been really interesting to see both sides. And it's like you can never stop learning how to cater to different businesses, because no business is the same no matter what. So it's been really cool, like 2 sides of a coin, but it's actually a 6-sided die. And, and it's always secret option C.
Is it A or B? No. Always secret option C.
Yeah.
Well, do you feel that, so in 2024, we stopped a lot of our sort of physical expansion. We haven't bought any more properties. We're not opening any new locations.
We're building a ramp.
We're building a ramp, a single ramp, and it's its own little challenge. But you've sort of settled in at the Newburgh location. You've got relationships with customers. You've got relationships with the crew. And then you have a larger role with the entire company. And do you feel that sort of mix of predictable and unpredictable is a good fit for you right now, or what would you like more of as you look forward to the rest of this year?
I love the mix. I don't think I like chaos as much as you. All the time. All the time. So there's a time and a place for everything. And I do like some chaos when it's controlled. But I love
like
the
Jessica.
mix.
Yes.
I think anybody that works in food service for long term, like if you're doing more than 2 or 3 years, you're drawn to it. Like you get kind of addicted, because every day is different. You're not sitting at a desk. You get to interact with people, but you can also be like, I'm going to the kitchen. I need some alone time.
Yeah.
So it's
And
great.
I think we're in a kind of I say crossroads, which acts like we
All
say
the
this all the time. But we are, because we decided to deliberately kind of be disciplined and not take on, because we do get approached a lot about, hey, do you want to look at this property? Do you want to open a coffee shop here? I mean, I think Zach just got a call a few days ago. So saying, let's be disciplined, let's work on the challenges that we have now, because there are some, and trying to figure out where we kind of put our energy towards right now. So it's been a different season, but I think in 3 to 6 months, we're going to be feeling a lot better.
We're going to be feeling bored.
And then
I'll create some chaos.
And then it'll be the perfect time for Zach to come in, slide in, and say, "How about this location?
It's the circle of life.
Paige, do you want to open your own store?"
Why not?
We'll see. We'll see what happens. So I guess when Jessica asked you, I think it was a Facebook message. Was that it?
Mm-hmm.
You know.
I do take credit for this one.
Yeah, you get credit. You get the win. Did you think that you would be here, however many years later, in this role, and
Nope.
that it would be as good of a fit as it's been?
Nope, not at all. Nope. I thought I would be in LA or New York. Mm-hmm. Probably miserable, probably really poor, but living my corporate girl boss life.
Yeah, it's funny to see how things work out and what we can expect, and then I just want to, I guess, publicly, commend you for your attitude and your spirit, and I really can't think of very many times to where you've said no. I mean,
Killing a spider.
You do have those boundaries.
But then you did.
The tiny ones, not the big ones.
And it's I don't want to say that you don't have boundaries, because you do, but it's very just admirable that you don't let things that might intimidate somebody your age stop you, and you take things on, and you hopefully know that we wouldn't ask you to do things that we don't believe in you being capable of doing, and you just crush them like left and right.
There has been a few plumbing projects that I'm like, babe, she can't figure that out.
But she has
But
figured
then
some
you
of them
have.
out.
Yeah,
She
some.
has.
Yeah,
Some.
only
Yeah.
one made me cry.
There have been some tears. Yeah, there have been some tears. All right. Well, we thought it would be great for people to know that there are more, hands making this whole thing work, and it's Jessica's right hand.
She's a big part of it.
Yeah. So any other things that you can think of that kind of came to mind that you would want to sort of close us out with?
I just kept thinking about how you guys are like mom and dad.
Is it challenging sometimes to know when we are both asking you things that might be in conflict? I'll ask you something and you're like, oh, Jessica wouldn't like that. Or Jessica last time, we're like, oh, that's going to piss Zach off.
Oh, when I first started, yeah, I was like, this is scary. This is because I was like child of divorce.
I know, and then we put you on divorce care. When we were like, we were doing the West Side, and we were like at each other's throats because we were working together, like, you know,
Too much.
18 hours a day, never, you know,
No
away
break.
from each other.
But now it's like, I feel like it's gotten to the point where we are like a little family and we can literally go out of town on vacations together.
Yeah, it's true.
Been to Chicago twice this year.
Yeah, like our freezer went down and Zach wanted to put a chest freezer behind the register in Newburgh, and my first words were, Jess is going to let you keep that there?
And I said, don't tell her.
And it's still there.
Yeah, yeah. And it worked.
It is there, but only as a necessity until the summer's over, because we're selling so much ice cream. We have to have a place to put it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed that it's there.
the form versus function dynamic, oftentimes Paige has to be put in the middle of that. And yeah, we hope you've learned some good things about how you want to have, you know, your marriage someday. You know, maybe what not to do in a lot of cases. So
Yeah, I'm sure we've given you some prime examples.
but yeah,
Never.
no, I think it's neat that we've gotten to the place in our relationship to where when we leave each other, we don't just say like, see you later. It's
Love ya.
Love ya.
love ya.
Well, that's it. Thank you for listening to the show this week. The Honeymoon Coffee Company podcast is produced in partnership with the Nectar Podcast Network, with music by Sam Cuban and podcast production by me, Wesley Luttrell. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll be back again soon.